Well, welcome to another race analysis. This is round 2 of the 2025 Super Series, and this is the road race at Tailem Bend Motorsport Park, or the Bend. We're racing Cat 1 this year, and so we're racing 9 laps, which is about 69 kilometres of this course. There are 6 teams in Cat 1. We've got us in Mood with the pink and blue kit. We've got a couple of individuals, the guest picks in the blue and white stripes, Black Chrome in the red and white, Norwood Blue, New Energy Racing GPA, and then there's Dash, which is a new team this year. So right off the bat, we are working for our sprinter Canane, who's number 203, just up ahead of me here. Right now, we are all together. We're about halfway through the race, and so far, nothing, no attacks have gone that have stuck, and really nothing's gone that's got more than a few people in it. Our strategy for this race is pretty simple. We're working for Canane, and we want it to come down to a bunch sprint with him following my wheel around the last corner, or alternatively a break with him in it, and he's keen to see what he can do during the race. Now, we finished 5th in the TTT, and there are 6 teams in Cat 1, so we really don't have anyone who's going to be a marked rider for this race. We've got a bunch of strong riders, but no one who's going to be expected to be troubling the podium. So we really have no obligation to do any work here. The only reason we should be chasing something is if every other team's represented, or it's a really good move that we think might actually stick. Canane in the orange gloves is sitting right on my wheel. He stays at the front of this race, sort of in the top 10-15 wheels, almost the entirety of the first sort of 2/3 of this race. We've got 3 riders at this point. Miles in number 206, followed by Moth, and Harry's, I think, might already be up the road. We've got a couple of riders who are tasked with just closing down anything threatening that we're not in, and between the 3 of them, and the other teams, nothing's got away in the first 2/3 of this race. I think I remember at some point around this time in the race saying to Canane that I didn't think anything was going to go. No one was going to let any break go. And so he could perhaps relax and take a bit of a spell at the back of the pack and stop burning so much energy. So there's a break of about 10 or 12 riders up the road, but one of our riders, Harry, is in the break, and so I'm just sitting third wheel. Guest Picks is pulling it back with these 2 riders, and I'm genuinely sitting pretty comfy. But then I can see up ahead that Harry has dropped out of the break. He'd been doing so much work in the first half of the race, and now we've got nobody in a dangerous break that's looking like it's working well together. So this is literally the first time in the whole race that I have stuck my nose in the wind. I'm not trying to bridge across to it. If I was, I would have spiked up to 1,000 watts. I just want to inject a bit of pace into this. And I can see 1 or 2 riders starting to sprint across. And when they're going across in 1s and 2s, that's usually a good indication that the rest of the field is going to come round pretty hard afterwards and start closing it down. And sure enough, 1, 2, 3, 5 riders jump across. I get in the wheels, people are chasing me, the front of the race sits up, and it all comes back together, and nothing too serious comes of it. Only a few moments later, Gordo from our team launches another attack, and this draws out a really strong break with 10 riders in it. But we've got Gordo, who started it off, and Moth, one of our strong diesels, in the break. So we're already, we've got 20% of that break. And so the rest of us can sit back and just see what happens. We didn't manage to get Canane into that break, but with 2 of our riders up the front and absolutely no pressure behind. My job here, I'm trying to get to the front to try to take some pace out of the chase, because we're happy with this. Unfortunately, a couple of the other teams weren't happy with that. Maybe they'd missed the move, and so they're going to bring this back. And it's absolutely strung out in single file. But we've got no one doing any work at the moment. We've got 2 guys up the front, so this really heavy chase effort, this is suiting us fine. And eventually this attack does come back together. But no sooner had it been stitched back together, or indeed it might not have quite made it, it looks like whoever was driving this to bring this back finished their pull, pulled off, and the pace came right out of the chase, and all of a sudden that group of 10 up the road just manages to start slipping away again. But unfortunately this time, Moth was not in the break. He's now coming back on the orange bike on the left, and so now we've either got one or no riders up the front, and so now this is looking threatening. But fortunately, GPA didn't have anyone either, and so Angus Dixon, he lights it up. At this point, I'm close enough to the front that I can respond, and without doing too much effort, I slot onto the back of the black chrome in the red and white up ahead and get a nice little tow up to the front. But while that worked pretty well for me, it was the first indication I had all day that I was going to be cramping. So we're over an hour into this race, and I don't usually race anything more than about 45 minutes. And although thought I was keeping on top of my nutrition, I did start to cramp up. And so for the rest of this race, this is really just going to have to be about me managing to do as little work as possible. So I'm keeping a bit of extra speed here and rolling up to the back of the next group, and hoping that I get a bit of time to recover before things light up again. And I get about 10-15 seconds, heart rate back down to 170. But at this point, I'm now the front moody in the bunch. My teammates are all behind me. And so when these two guys go, I decide to snap across and just sort of sit on the back of them. Now, I am not interested in riding in a breakaway. I'm going to say that again. I do not want to ride in a breakaway. That is not the sort of ride that I'm going to do well in, and I'm already starting to cramp. And so when Matthew Pomeroy finishes his turn, and he's definitely a breakaway rider. When he finishes his turn, flicks the elbow, I'm going to sit at, just shy of threshold, just hard enough to make it look like I'm working. But I don't want this breakaway to succeed. My team leader's not in it. I don't think I've got the legs to survive in a breakaway, let alone drive one. But then I look back at this point and I realize that these 5 or 6 riders and I have a pretty decent gap. And you can see there's 2 guest picks, there's 2 black chrome, there's a GPA, and I'm here. That's 4 of the 6 teams represented. I don't think we were really too worried about Dash. And so this actually is a break that could stay away. So at this point, I'm kind of in two minds. I don't want to ride a break. So I'm sort of thinking that I'll sit on, pull the minimum amount of turns, hope like hell that someone else brings this back so that I can lead out Canane for the bunchy at the end. Or if it doesn't, then I'll at least have something in the legs to sprint. And sprinting from a group of 6 is better than sprinting from a group of 56. And a few more people start to bridge across. There's a couple of people really putting in shifts at the front of this. Guest Picks is motivated to move this along. I think that was one of the Underwoods who was driving that last turn. They're in a good position. They've got 2 riders here. GPA's got a couple of riders here, but it's not quite fast enough. And about 10 riders end up making this break. But unfortunately for me, I was the only one from my team. So at this point, I'm sort of wondering what I want to do. The guys that I'm racing with in this group are, a lot of them are either A grade or the absolute top of B grade. I get flicked through, so I'm going to pull a turn, but as you can see, I only really hit it up to 300 watts and then pulled off. And as bad as it seems, like I'm the only moody here. I have no obligations to work. Looks like I do sprint up that hill a little bit. There's a bit of an incline as you come out of that corner. But I really want to keep my powder as dry as possible. And given that Guest Picks, Black Chrome, and a couple of the other teams have multiple riders in this group, I probably shouldn't have pulled as hard as I did going up that hill. So you can see in the rear camera that while there's motivated riders towing this break along, the bunch hasn't given up yet, and there's 1s and 2s strung across the course for about probably 30 seconds back to the main bunch. So this breakaway certainly isn't away yet, but I'm sitting in 4th wheel. I've made it across, and so I'm just going to see what happens from here. A little bit later on, I'm through to the front of the line. I think this is James Hand. He's trying to motivate the bunch. This is it, boys. It's here if you want it. And I figure at this point, this break might as well work. So I probably shouldn't burn all my bridges. But again, I don't want to do more work than I have to. So although I did pull a turn at 400 watts, it was 5-10 seconds. Nothing I can't recover from, and arguably a more efficient pull anyway. But as I'm dropping back, I can see just how big this group's gotten. I reckon there's 15, 20 riders here. But I can also see that the elastic seems to have snapped back to the main bunch. Now this is a kind of a win, kind of a loss. Like with this many riders, I can avoid doing any work, but also with this many riders, there's a bigger chance of people dropping wheels. Now this rider from Dash fortunately closed the gap he let. But if he didn't, that was going to have to be me because, and again, you know, wheels, people dropping wheels. When the group is this big, it is really disorganized. And already the group just seems to have split in half for, you know, absolutely no reason. So I'm pretty happy where I am, but also I'm going to have my head on a swivel for the rest of this race. So this is a really pivotal part of the race here. Tristan Jones from Guest Picks has been pulling a big turn. I'm not going to come around him at this point. And then Zane Espy, who's riding individually, and Liam Underwood from Guest Picks just kind of roll off the front. Now, I actually didn't see who went off the front. I wasn't keeping tabs on who was who. And so I didn't realize that it was a Guest Picks and an individual. But I was seriously on the rivet after some pretty big turns from some of these guys. And as you can see, I'm swinging off. I'm not going to chase that. I'm going to see if I can drop back further into the bunch. And since there's essentially 16 riders in this group, I'm going to take shelter wherever I can. So Alex McGarry just took a bit of a flyer to try to get across to that, and he was immediately followed by 2 more Guest Picks. Again, I'm not really focusing on who's in the bunch, but what I hadn't realised is that there are now 3 Guest Picks up the road, along with Alex and Zane. And there's now a few Black Chrome riders going across as well. And potentially this is race over for me. I don't have the legs to close anything by myself. And I guess what I'm just hoping is that some of the Dash riders or some of the GPA guys or Norwood are willing to put the effort in to bring that back. Things settle down after a little while with 3 riders up the road. I don't know who they are. They're all wearing what looks like pretty dark coloured kit. And although this group's got a whole bunch of Guest Picks for the guys in front of me, at least 3 Black Chrome in the red and white who just slotted off to the right, a couple of independents and some New Energy Racing guys in it, no one really seems to put together a team effort to pull those 3 up the road back. Now, as it turns out, 2 of the guys up the road are Guest Picks, so they're not going to chase their 2 teammates. They had Liam Underwood and Marco Panici up the road. But Matthew Pomeroy from New Energy Racing GPA, he's just pulled a turn on the front. There's an individual, Nick Ifantidis, who's pulling a turn. And of course, Guest Picks are just going to sit second wheel and they're not going to help out. But between the 3 GPA riders here, the 3 Black Chrome riders, and the 3 other Guest Picks, the responsibility to do the chasing is absolutely on them. And no disrespect to the Black Chrome guys, but I couldn't figure out if they were riding as individuals or riding as a team because none of them put on a shift at the front. And you can see the 3 of them sitting behind me. So at this point, I'm in a pretty good position, not really knowing who's up the road. I knew one of the guys was the individual Zane Espy, but I'm in a pretty good position. I've got 3 teams with 3 riders, and so I've got no responsibility to do any work here. I'm a bit concerned that some of the teams, especially Guest Picks, are going to start trying to 1-2 and send some more people across to the break. And so I'm going to just save as much energy as I can. And I'm also going to try to be really smart and follow the right wheels. So you can see I'm sticking pretty close to the front of this group. The 3 Black Chrome guys are still behind me. But also, I am really beginning to feel the effects of cramps in both legs now. A minute later, there's a bit of a lull in the pace. And I let myself just roll up a few wheels, which allows me to see this move going. And I was going to jump across to it, and then I saw that the GPA rider was going to fill the hole and didn't didn't do the work myself. And then same again, a minute or so later, coming around this left-hander into a hill. I can see that the guys at the front are kicking it, but I can also see that these two are going to happily slot in, so I'm just going to drop in behind them and save myself a few watts getting up that hill. A bit later on, and you can see just how well Guest Picks played this. A black chrome rider rolls off the front, and sitting right on his wheel is a Guest Picks rider doing no work at all. A few seconds later, I think this is a dash rider, jumps across, and sitting straight on his wheel is another Guest Picks rider. And they just 1-2'd this. At this point, I made a mistake in not jumping across sooner. With 2 more teams jumping across and a bunch of Guest Picks riders, I probably should have been right on the back of that, but fortunately for me, the other black chrome rider took it on himself to close that gap up to his teammate. At this point, the last gap the last little hill around that left-hander had, even letting a few wheels go and letting a few people fill in, had me at 500 watts for 10 or 20 seconds. So I was gassed as it was, so I'm quite happy to be able to sit at the back of this. So things have been pretty disorganized for the last sort of 10 minutes. We're rapidly losing time, but I've been keeping out of the wind. And so when this move goes, I've got the energy to chase it. Unfortunately, looking in the rear camera, you can see Nick. I don't know what happened. I think he got chopped. He goes down and out of this front group. But with the speed that they were going, this was a move I had to get across to. And fortunately, I got close enough within range just at the sort of at the bottom of a sweeping downhill. So I was able to carry a bit of speed and save a bit of energy and not close those last few meters with watts. And I roll up a bit past them. I obviously put a bit too much in. But of course, inevitably someone counterattacks. And fortunately for me, enough people go with him that I'm able to hop in the draft and get back up to speed. But these 2 Guest Picks riders, after that little attack, they are motivated, and Sean O'Callaghan hits the front here and drills it down the start-finish line. And I think just about each time someone attacks like this, we lose 1 or 2 riders from this group. And I'm sitting at 500 watts, and they just gap me. Now, I'm not going to keep investing energy in that if I can't hold the wheel, so I'm going to let someone else do it. It's 2 Guest Picks riders, so by now I think I've figured out that there's Guest Picks riders up the road. So seeing 2 Guest Picks riders go here means that the other teams still have to do all the chasing. And that gives me just enough opportunity as the bell goes to slot back in, catch some draft, and try to stick with this group a little bit longer. And one thing I'm considering here is that I'm pretty sure that I'm in it for a top 10 at this point. I'm pretty sure the top 3's gone, but being in Cat 1 and being in the top 10 is a huge win. So even though I'm cramping, I'm smashing down all my fuel that I've got on board, desperately trying to keep the legs moving to get around to this finish line. So we're just coming around my favourite feature of this course, the sweeping left-hander into this little climb. And people are lighting it up the climb. They do this every lap. It's a really good place to put some pain into your opponents. And it's certainly put me on the rivet, especially with my cramps starting to flare up. But there's one Guest Picks rider who's attacked just before that climb, and a black chrome and a Guest Picks are now chasing him. And despite my cramp, I decide that this is a hill I'm going to die on. I get incredibly lucky that just before I commit the energy to go after it, Alex McGarry from New Energy Racing GPA, he shunts along. And once I get up to speed, sitting in his wheel, I'm cruising. And he's getting me most of the way across, and I'm honestly just counting my blessings and hoping that he gets all the way across. He does almost get there. He certainly gets across to the black chrome rider, Pat Galloway, who's been... I think he managed to get across to, or most of the way across to the Guest Picks rider, but then the one who was sitting on his wheel attacked the rest of the way. And so now there's 2 more Guest Picks riders up the road. Everyone's spread out, and I burn my last match getting across to them. This is a seriously hard effort for me at this stage in the race. I'm cramping, I'm low on fuel, I'm tired, and this is probably one of the better efforts that I've done to get across to a meaningful break. This was one of those ones that was just not optional. It was either say goodbye to any chance of a good result out of this group or invest that energy. And now here I am. There's 3 guys up the road. There's 2 guest picks riders chasing, and there's little old me sitting in the wheels hoping not to die. We've got 162 Tristan Jones, 167 Josh Zoanetti, and these guys are unfathomably strong. Admittedly, for the last sort of third of the race, all they've had to do is chase attacks. They haven't had to contribute to any pace because they've got 2 guys up the road. So they don't... anything else they get out of this than 2 out of the top 3 is a bonus. I'm now thinking that a 6th is a really, really good outcome for me. So I am going to do a turn. But I think I told them at this point, like, I'm not beating you in a sprint. If I can finish with you, I'm going to be happy. So I pull this piddling turn at less than 400 watts, and then Josh gets on the front, and I'm now doing the same amount of effort in his wheel.
I'm cramping, I'm not beating you in a sprint.
I just give them a little bit of encouragement to let them know that I might be sitting on a bit much, but I'm no threat at the end. How much they believe me, I don't know, but it was true. Now, I've just sped this turn up to 4 times speed. This is Tristan Jones. This turn is fully 2 minutes long, and I'm sitting in his wheel at well over my threshold. And yet there's still 2 guys bridging across from behind. So, I mean, this is a phenomenal turn, and I am absolutely on the river, and there are people who are bridging to this move. I just can't fathom how strong some of these guys are. And I mean, he's an amazing sit, and I'm still just on the river, even being there. I think it's pretty clear at this point that this is what I've got. 300 watts on the front is me pulling a turn, and clearly that's not going to be enough, given the caliber of riders we've got coming across and behind. But we're about 1.5 Ks, 2 Ks to the end of this race, and I'm still, pretty happy. I'm still thinking I can be in the top 10. This group starts at 4 and goes down to about 8, 9. But I'm pretty familiar with how I'm feeling. I've been here before at the end of this race in previous years, and if I've been in a break, I will just cramp, and as soon as something cramps, everything else is going to too. So now it's just going to be a matter of stretching things out and hoping. So here we are coming into the last 2 corners. I think I put myself in about 4th wheel here. People start to play a bit of silly games, a bit of cat and mouse. I probably would like to start this sprint. If I had good legs, I'd like to start this sprint from about 3rd wheel. It's a long sprint after the last corner, and it's a little bit uphill. You come around this corner, up a rise. James Wade from Black Chrome, what I think launches an attack, so I want to get on his wheel, but he sits up pretty quickly. He turns around to watch and ends up riding himself off the track. Meanwhile, 2 more guest picks riders launch it. I launch as hard as I can, and everything seizes up. My calf, both calves, my quads, everything seized up, and I'm pedaling from my hips. Callum Pearce from Dash comes past me. Bowen Kemp from New Energies up the road already. Poor old James Wade is coming back to me, but doesn't quite have enough road. And that is the end of an absolutely excruciating sprint. You can hear me yelling and screaming. So from that group with 3 Black Chromes, the best they got was 10th with James, Pat Galloway and Tyson Cooper in 11th and 14th respectively. New Energy managed to come away with a 7th with Bowen Kemp. Alex McGarry in 12th was doing pretty well coming back to that group. Matthew Pomeroy dropped down to 15th. He'd done a lot of the work to start with. And guest picks walked away with the show with 1st, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. So 5 riders in the top 6. You've got to think they'd be pretty happy with that. Anyway, a bit of a long one today. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see you in the next one.